Hey all! So I often get asked how to export 3D objects from Max. So in Max we work with computer graphics and 3D shapes, so why shouldn't we be actually able to export them as objects on our hard disk? Actually as OBJ objects, so in the OBJ format, which is used by a lot of 3D modeling softwares like Maya, Unity, which is not actually a modeling software, but also like Cinema 4D and this kind of stuff, Blender. So OBJ is quite a diffused format to work with 3D models. So actually the OBJ format is pretty straightforward, so I created a little abstraction that exports objects from Max, so basically matrix data as OBJ. So let's give it a try. So for example, here I have a noise that goes inside the jit.gen, which does some simple distortion on a sphere. So let's see how it looks like then. It looks like this. Okay, pretty cool, pretty standard Max stuff. Now, if I want to export it, I send this matrix to this abstraction that I've created, and then I bang actually this matrix which has truth 0, so now the matrix go inside the abstraction, which does some calculations, and then it writes an OBJ file in a text. So we now just need to export this text file. We go. We save it as all files, we create a file, we call it for example test.obj, so we manually add the extension obj, I save it. Cool, so now this is an obj object, in fact it's right here. If I right click on it and say open with 3D viewer for example, and there we go, here is our 3D object exported, and now you can import it in Maya, in Unity, in whatever you want to do with it. You can actually also import it back in Max, for example, in a GGL model object. So I just read it, close this, read it, enable the object, and there we go. Here is our object. Let me actually attach GGL material, for example, to this thing, and cool, we got it back. In case we want to use textures with it, we can also use textures, because this abstraction creates texture coordinates. So actually, you can even use your own texture coordinates by inputting them in the second input and say use custom texture coordinates, otherwise it's going to create them automatically. Let's try with another object, so the gear. The gear object is a gear that I generate procedurally, and inside this jit.gen, in fact, I can even make the teeth longer or shorter, can change the height of this object. Cool. This looks pretty cool. It's all generated procedurally inside jit.gen. I actually even made a video about that. But now let's try to export it. So I bang this matrix, goes inside the object exporter, and I click on write obj. I override this text obj file that I created before, and cool. Let's now open it with 3D viewer. So here it is. It's a three-dimensional object exported from Max. Cool. Now, this object is actually called m4m.objectexporter. M4m means Max for Max devices. So this is kind of the name I chose to give to all my abstractions that I created for Max during the years. So they're basically just Max for Max devices, just objects that make it simpler to do certain things in Max. And you can find them on my website. I will put a link somewhere. Cool. Now, limitations of this object. Well, basically, for the moment, you can only use a matrix that has the same width and the same height. So, for example, it can be 10 by 10 or 20 by 20 or 1000 by 1000, but cannot be like 100 by 40 or something like that, because the algorithm doesn't work otherwise. I have to fix it. I didn't have so much time. I just wanted to put out this thing as soon as possible, and so this can still be fixed. If you want to fix it and get back to me, that will be actually very cool. So that's the limitation of the object. You can also not input your own normals, although this will be pretty easy to add to the abstraction. So if you want to do that as well, you're very welcome to do that. So yeah, this is it. The OBJ format is a pretty straightforward format. It just contains a bunch of numbers to represent the vertices and then the faces. So it was actually pretty easy to create this object. I wonder why it didn't exist yet. So yeah, cool. This is free download, so just grab it and use it, and maybe share your 3D objects that you export from Max. And probably there are going to be some bugs, so just get back to me with these and I'll try to fix them. Well, see you soon on my YouTube channel. Ciao everybody.